This is QiQ, the question in question. Brought to you by TherapyBites Art Lab. Here to take a bite out of modern-day pseudo-psychological psycho-malarkey. Now entering the Art Lab studio, today's T-Ballers, a collection of fellow strugglers, confronting personal challenges, navigating precarious relationships, and tackling trauma. Humans like each of us, juggling difficult human emotions, each here with unique life experiences, lived stories, and questions we'll bite into that just might help you too. And now, entering the Art Lab studio for the 9,880th time is the host of TherapyBites QiQ, Doc Heath.
Hey T-Ballers, thank you for joining us this evening, and yes, I know I just dropped that in there twice, and I don't even know why that happened. I see, I'm on Facebook, and to all you Facebook folks out there, thank you for joining us this evening. We used to not do this doubled up on Facebook, but I'm thankful for my teammate Sarah for making that happen. I was just wondering, gosh, why don't we double up and do it on Facebook? Why don't we double up and do it on other social media? We may do it next time on Instagram or something like that. But for now, hey, Facebook's cool. We can do YouTube. And for you guys that are watching after the recording, thank you for doing that. Share it out to your friends. You don't have to be here at 7 Central on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can actually watch the replay and gain some great, nutritious, psychological information. And welcome to the Art Lab Library. Look at all the books over there. Lots and lots of books. I'm a bookaholic, and proudly so. Let's get right to it. We're going to go to the board. You guys know the name of the game. Question in question. And our categories for the evening are Couch Crumbs questions, Creature Feature, Social Media Smackdown. Yes, I do love my social media debates. Thank you guys for joining in the debate me. No harm meant, no harm intended, no ill will. I just like to take on pseudo-psychological, psycho-malarkey, mumbo-jumbo memes on social media. And, of course, I got behind fresh from the therapy couch, Couch Crumbs, and Neuro, otherwise known as Psych Secrets. And our first question for the evening comes from Creature Feature. For 200 Psy coins, the answer is this little critter is at work sabotaging your thinking when you tell someone, I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it. I knew this terrible tragedy was going to happen. I knew I was going to have a flat tire. I knew that, well, you were going to have a flat tire, run out of gas, whatever. Gosh, I've done both of those. Have you guys done those before? Actually, ran out of gas, had a flat tire. I've done both myself. Thankfully, I've not done either of those simultaneously. But go ahead and just drop in the chat there if you know the question. And just to kind of review the rules of the game while you're thinking about that is we collect a bank of questions, but then we just provide the answer. And William, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. The avoidance net. Man, that is so close. That is so close. This little critter is at work sabotaging your thinking when you tell someone, I knew that was going to happen. Now, the avoidance gnat, we talk about the avoidance gnat a lot. The avoidance gnat tells you, stop, don't do that. Don't go over there. Stay away from that. Don't go to Walmart. You know, there's lots of people there. Too peoply. But this one is a little bit different one, and the hint is when you tell someone, I knew that was going to happen. What is that? I knew the future. And the question, of course, is What is the fortune-telling gnat? What is the fortune-telling gnat? And once again, thank you for that response there. Thank you guys for chiming in. We like to break down psychological concepts in a way that is more easily understood, and we're just happy you guys are here this evening. Let's go back to the board. And this particular answer is going to come from the category Art Lab Couch Crumbs Quotes. Couch Crumbs Quotes for 600 Psy Coins. Now, this is a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. And, wow, it is the daily double. Daily triple, my bad. The T-ball triple. The T-ball triple. And William contributed that, what is the mind reading NAT? Yeah, that's another. NAT stands for, by the way, negative automatic thought. Negative automatic thought. And at this point, I kind of lose track. I think it was some of you guys can fact check me on this. Aaron Beck that came up with the negative automatic thought. And then I think it was another guy, Daniel Amen, I think, came up with, he just kind of flipped the letters around with automatic negative thought. But either or, we just kind of turned it into a little critter to help people better understand. But it's negative automatic thought, a gnat, automatic negative thought, an ant. And then we have a whole series, a whole creature feature zoo of each of those. And William talked about a couple of those. Mind reading, thinking that you know what someone else is thinking. You know the secret to knowing what someone else is thinking? Ask them. You don't know till you ask. And from back to our topic this evening on Couch Crumbs questions, the answer is, this quote is from Franklin D. Roosevelt, or some of you folks, I guess, pronounce it Roosevelt. He was the 32nd president of the United States. Yeah, if someone ever stops you on the street, says, "Hey, you, for $1,000, who was the 32nd president of the United States, you can win $1,000." We're not going to give you $1,000, but it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This illustrates a common misunderstanding of emotion. He's famous for a quote, but it was a long time ago, and so we'll give him a little bit of a wide berth there. But currently, people still tend to think this way. But this illustrates a common misunderstanding of emotion. What was that quote? And that's the daily triple, which means that this particular question is worth 1,800 Psy coins. I don't know that we've ever given away 1,800 Psy coins. You know, the board goes up to 800, so I guess we could theoretically give away 2,400 Psy coins. And what can you get for that? Well, you can get T-shirts and coffee cups and all kinds of cool things from the TherapyBites store. And we have just about another 30 seconds for that. My team tells me stop jabbering. Shall I try it? See, that's about 7 seconds of not jabbering, and I bet my team thought that I was incapable of doing that. But as you see, they would be wrong. For I am. Okay, let's get back to the action here, and the question is, what is the only thing we have to fear is fear itself? That is the quote. What is, oh yeah, I like that one too. Speak softly and carry a big stick of deodorant. My wife would agree that that's exactly what I should do. Speak softly and maybe, no, she doesn't say that. I'm just joking. Not what we can do for our country, but what we can do for a country. Yeah, JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And the other, speak softly and carry a big stick. Anybody know who that was? That was actually the guy on whom theoretically the teddy bear was based, and that is Teddy Roosevelt. Franklin D. and Teddy, two different presidents. Interesting, they both had the same name. Here we've had a few presidents with the same name. But the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Now, what's the problem with that? Anytime you hear people putting the focus on the emotion, that the emotion is the problem, they're telling you that they don't know how the brain works in a step-by-step daisy chain algorithmic fashion when it comes to emotion, because we first engineer our thoughts, and then our thoughts engineer our lives. What is it that leads to fear? Not events. Even fear doesn't lead to more fear. If you tell yourself something is a danger to you, you will tell your brain to manufacture fear. And then if you tell your brain that fear is bad for you, you will manufacture more fear because you've, of course, told yourself that fear is bad for you. And around we go. We will be right back after one more run at the board here. Let's go back to the board. And this comes from... Oops, let me get to the right page here, guys. All right, here we go. For 400 Psycoins, the answer is, this false claim has been widely debunked, with research showing that we use virtually all parts of our brain throughout the day, and we'll be back for that right after this.
You are a fellow human struggling with difficult emotions, a fracturing relationship, parenting problem, mental health difficulty, have a psychotherapy from hell story to tell, or a challenging life experience question, and would like to share your story by stepping up to bat as a T-baller. Either register by texting QiQ to 1-870-686-4196 and join our Therapy Bites community, or send a postcard with your name, address, phone number, email address, and age to the address on the screen. Therapy Bites QiQ, P.O. Box 1391, Jonesboro, Arkansas 72403-1391.
And we're back, and I'll repeat that one more time, and that is the answer. This false claim has been widely debunked, with research showing that we use virtually all parts of our brain throughout the day. And I don't have responses up here just yet from either our Facebookers or YouTubers. And the question is, what is the myth that we only use 10% of our brain? Saying extra points. I'll give you the whole tamale if you can get this next one at any time. Who is the famous philosopher on whom that particular belief is based? The belief that we humans only use 10% of our brains. Any of you history buffs out there know where that comes from? We'll give you a few minutes, and we'll go back to the board for the next item of the evening. And this comes from fresh from the therapy couch. Fresh from the therapy couch. Oh wow! Somebody already has that down there for. Well, neurons are the workhorses of the brain. Thank you, William. Neurons are a small structure in the brain and part of the circuitry of the brain. And to make it simple, I often explain, if you put this neuron with this neuron and this neuron with a few other neurons, what can that mean? That could produce me deciding I want a taco. But it could also mean anything else. 2 + 2 = 37. Your brain will never believe that you lie to it. Your brain will always just take your word for it, which is why we should be very accurate. Okay. This is from Fresh from the Therapy Couch. We'll get back on track here. Y'all just don't worry. Stick with me. We got a few minutes to go. For 600 Psycoins, this novel tells the story of a man who fakes insanity to get out of a prison sentence, but ends up in a mental institution. Gosh, wouldn't that be terrible? You skip prison, but wound up in a mental institution. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of history about that. And while you see if you can come up with the proper question there. And no one's come up with the other answer about who kind of got the whole ball rolling with people thinking that you only use 10% of your brain. Tick tock, tick tock. We only have about 6 minutes left. But the problem with insanity and even diagnosis is it is so often just wrong. I just was in a little bit of debate before I got on the QiQ show tonight with a dear young lady on Instagram that said, "Who are you to de-diagnose people?" Well, I'm a PhD in neuropsychology and a PhD in forensic psychology, and I've been in practice for about 30 years. I've not had the doctorates that long, of course. I started out as a case manager, kind of really not a case manager, more of a tech on a psych unit for those with severe SMIs, severe mental illnesses. And by the way, people don't become their mental illness. They have a mental illness. There's no such thing as a schizophrenic. There's only someone who struggles with schizophrenia. There's no such thing as a bipolar, but someone who struggles with a diagnosis of bipolar. There's no such thing as people don't become diagnoses, and that's what my debate was. But I de-diagnose people routinely because people come and say this, that, or the other diagnosis, and I ask them, how badly do you want to be that diagnosis? Or are you really stuck on it? I don't want to burst balloons unnecessarily. And often I find that it was just a rapid diagnosis, and maybe a psychiatrist spent all of 2 minutes and 47 seconds with them before giving them that diagnosis. And I just think that's just poor practice, if not unethical altogether. I will actually, for some of you budding clinicians out there, give yourself a break. I'll often have to spend several weeks, several sessions with somebody to diagnose completely and be convinced of the diagnosis myself, because you just can't get to know people that quick. Although, yes, I may have a working diagnosis. No problem with that. Have a working diagnosis. But be willing to admit when you may not have hit the bullseye. And the question is, what is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? What is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with none other but the Joker himself, the all-time vintage Joker, Jack Nicholson, played in back in, what was that, the 70s? One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I think he flew over the cuckoo's nest before he was in that creepy Shining movie, or was it vice versa? And then he went on to become a high-ranking military officer in that famous movie. Gosh, what was that called? You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. It escapes me right now. Okay, let's go back to the board and pick out our next category, which is for 200 Psy coins, the Couch Crumbs newsletter. The Couch Crumbs newsletter. And the answer is catastrophizing ants. Catastrophizing ants. And we will be back as you ponder that right after this.
If you plan on being in the local area of your podcast player app and would like complimentary tickets to the TherapyBites QiQ Art Lab studio audience, please search TherapyBites on your device and just smash that subscribe button. Your complimentary ticket grants you access to alerts so you'll never miss a show.
Okay, pondered it well enough, and I'm sorry, that's a good guess, 12 Angry Men. That was earlier, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and the question at hand is from Couch Crumbs newsletter. We only have one more to go after this. And catastrophizing ants is the answer for 200 Psy coins. We don't have a response just yet, so we will move right along with the show. The question is, what is the creator of the newsletter named after a cognitive distortion that every difficult situation is a catastrophe, is overwhelming, is unbearable? And I'd like to present to you guys for your consideration. You know, I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm here to present to you how it is possible to live. And one way to think about overwhelming is that which can cause my death or serious injury. And why is that so important? That is so important because the brain, again, never thinks you lie to it. It just takes what you say to yourself and, snap, crackle, pop, programs it up in a way that may not be very healthy for you. So if you're telling yourself that's overwhelming, it's really not too far away from telling yourself that something is deadly to you, a threat to you, and it's going to leverage all types of fight or flight responses, including hormones and neurotransmitters. And let's see, I'm pretty sure 12 Angry Men is one Heath Ledger was in with You Can't Handle the Truth in It. No, I'm sorry, it's not. Heath Ledger wasn't in it. It was Tom Cruise was in that with Jack Nicholson, along with Demi Moore. And my brain keeps coming back to An Officer and Gentleman, but that's Richard Gere. I know that's not it. It was, gosh, what? See how the brain is just funny? The information's there. I know it's there. I'm just not retrieving it. But the reason it's so bad to tell yourself, which you're welcome to do, you can, it's a free country where I live, and I think you should be able to think whatever you want. I think that people should be able to have the right to be as miserable as they choose to be, and this is something that I think just doesn't bode well for you. But if you tell yourself something is overwhelming, your brain thinks that it's at risk, and it's going to leverage all types of things, including neurotransmitters, which aren't really a good fit, which really aren't congruent for the situation, and why suffer that way needlessly? Okay, one more, and we will go back to the board for our last question here, and it comes from the category of neuro, also known as Psych Secrets, and the answer is this process. Oh, it's tricky. This is complicated, maybe. This process strengthens the connections between neurons, making it a key mechanism in learning and memory formation. We'll be right back after this.
Premier accommodations for our T-Ball contributors provided electronically by the luxurious Art Lab Studio, overlooking the steaming cesspool of pseudo-psychological social media psychomalarkey, and located in cyberspace on your favorite podcast hosting platform, where we invite you to the most psychomalogically thrilling podcast in town, while you feast on our award-winning Psychologically-Nutritious buffet of TherapyBites cuisine, conscientiously cooked up by your hard-working T-Ball team chefs.
And yes, of course, I just couldn't drag it from the tip of my tongue. Thank you very much. A Few Good Men, one of my all-time favorites, which was, of course, directed by Meathead. Yep, I kid you not. The director was Meathead. And you Archie Bunker fans, you know what I'm talking about. You others, you can Google it. Okay, the answer is for 800 Psy coins. What a whopping amount that is. This process strengthens the connections between neurons, kind of making them a superhighway. And this is a key mechanism in learning and memory formation. So the problem with thinking thoughts that are inaccurate, unrealistic thoughts, as we call them in the Art Lab, IUTs, I-U-T-Y-S, IUTs, little demon-like creature, is that your brain, if you practice that enough, will help you get really, really good at thinking really, really inaccurate ways. Again, your brain will do whatever you tell it to do over time. Be careful what you tell it. And let me just take one thing that's big on social media these days is avoiding anxiety. There's all kinds of things out there saying anxiety will kill you. You need to heal from your anxiety. I mean, saying that you need to heal from anxiety is like saying that you need to heal from your big proboscis or your nose. And you're meant to have a nose. And news alert, we're meant to have anxiety. And yes, thank you, me put in the chat there and I'll put up on the screen. We first engineer our thoughts, and then our thoughts engineer our lives. We first engineer our thoughts, and then our thoughts engineer lives. So I'll leave you with this, guys, for the evening. Think of it this way. If you tell your brain that anxiety is a threat to you by saying, I can't stand it, it's overwhelming, I have to get rid of it, you have labeled your anxiety something that is as normal for humans to experience as having a nose, even one as bountiful as mine, some would say. But if you tell your brain that anxiety is a threat to you, your brain will then create that whole cascade of responses to help you run away from anxiety, which is a part of you, which means you've programmed your brain to run away from yourself. How do you do that? That's not going to work out too well, unless you're a twin maybe, or a clone. There's this whole Spider-Man saga of the clones. I'm a big Spidey fan from way back in the 70s. And then your brain creates more anxiety because you've had anxiety. And then you catastrophize that anxiety, and it creates more anxiety because of that anxiety, because of the previous anxiety, because of the previous anxiety. Give your anxiety a hug. Embrace your humanity. See that it's not a harm to you, because long-term potentiation can take over, and you can get really, really good and expert at making anxiety worse for yourself. And you can never outrun that. Use some techniques. Mindfulness is a great one. Self-hypnosis is a great one. Cognitive restructuring is a great one. Avoidance will only ever make it worse. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back for our QiQ next Tuesday at 7 Central and next Thursday at 7 Central. Share it out. Maybe some others could use the mental boost, and we look forward to catching up then. Thanks so much again.
Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab QiQ, Doc Keith and T-Ball callers face off against steaming piles of pseudo-psychological psychomalarkey directly from your favorite social media platforms, or perhaps from the psychotherapy couch of a pill-pushing, emotion-demonizing, bobble-headed, woo-woo clinician who fed their kooky Kool-Aid to you. This is Art Potto speaking. Therapy Bites QiQ is a Dr. I'm a Floydnot production. Distributed by the Therapy Bites Art Lab Podcast.